All right, everybody, welcome back to the best hour of their day. Fern here with a longtime friend and the gym owner of the first CrossFit gym that I ever stepped foot in, Mr. Pat Sherwood. So, dude, it's been taking way too long to get you on the show. I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate your time.
Jay, my pleasure, brother. You're right. It has been a long time, and it's been far too long to make this happen. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Pat and I were just chatting before we hit this. The last couple of times I've seen Pat, he was just in a daze because I've seen him either at a health conference or at the games, which is usually not a time to talk to anybody about anything other than what is the immediate emergency or fire that they're dealing with.
Yeah, true. And and in those situations, you probably know as well as I do from all the level ones you've worked, and then you see some of those people at the games or whatnot, but after you've worked a couple hundred seminars at 50 people a pop, I think that's 10,000 people you've met.
Yeah.
Just like level one seminars. So the heck with the games or a health conference or whatever. And, you get people coming up, you're like, hey, so-and-so. And you're like, who is this person? And then you see a face that you recognize. And you're like, okay, I know who that is. I'm moving on to somebody else. And like, it's just, things move pretty fast, brother, as you know.
Yeah. It's, hey, remember I did the seminar in Raleigh? And I'm like, man, I've done at least a dozen seminars in Raleigh, I was the guy with the hat. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of guys wearing hats. It was during the winter.
That happens all the time. Every now and then somebody will mention a seminar that out of total dumb luck, I only did like one or two. And so I actually remember. Somebody will be like, do you remember Stuttgart, Germany? I'm like, oh, I do. I haven't done a lot. I haven't done a lot in Stuttgart, Germany. I do remember that one. But if you're talking Atlanta, Georgia.
No.
There was 45 seminars that went down there.
Oh man. How many seminars did you do? Do you know?
Only a couple hundred, yeah.
Only a couple, yeah. Only a couple.
But now you get somebody like Chuck Carswell that's done 500 or something seminars. So I have to use the term only a couple hundred.
Only a couple hundred, yeah. Which is a lot, by the way. I think people don't understand how many years it takes you to get to a couple hundred if you are doing the crazy person pace, which you did for many years, which is one every weekend, essentially. I mean, like if you're going to get to 200, be like, that is 4 years of your life every week on the road. So
yeah, no doubt. That's it. And at that pace, every weekend except for Christmas and New Year's, it was the usual pace back then. You could have been in a really weird situation where you could go a couple years and never have been in any one place on the earth more than 12 days. You're just, given that New Year's holiday, you're home for about 12 days when the next weekend pops up. And so you're like, I haven't been in one spot or one town for 2 weeks in multiple years. I should probably pump the brakes.
I've never even thought about it that way, but now that you bring it up, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't go nearly the pace that a lot of that you guys did for that long. I mean, I think the most I've ever done in 1 year, I think the past 2 years have been high 30s, like 37, 38. And even that,
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Even that can get to be a bit much sometimes.
Somebody like Chuck Carswell he needs to donate his brain to science.
I don't understand
how he can do what he does and still be as amazing and wonderful and cheery as he was on seminar 2.
Water off a duck's back. It's just like he's just there, and it rubs off on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's just a wave of calm that comes over. You're like, Chuck's here, so we're good,
Yep, Mayor Carswell.
I was thinking about this the other day because I use this example when I give the What is CrossFit lecture, but the first workout I ever did at your box in Virginia Beach was JT.
Okay. Yeah. Jeez,
it did not go well.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a lot of people probably have that experience even 7 years into CrossFit.
37 minutes or something to the tune of that. I was just like, oh my God. Oh man.
And that right there is just a classic, stubborn as a mule, military guy, military town mindset. Hey, here's the workout. Should we scale it? Negative. I'll just take 37 minutes. I'll let you know when I'm done. Give me the keys. I'll lock up.
Nope. I got it. I can totally do this. It's also a bit of a testament to That is absolutely not what should happen. Just if anybody has any confusion about what the stimulus for JT is, we could agree it is not 37 minutes.
Right.
But back then it was just, that was one of the things that I do somewhat miss about kind of the old days, is just like, listen, you're just gonna eat that shit sandwich, and when you're done, you're done.
Yes, and not that we could, there's probably a bunch of rabbit holes we could go down and make this way too long of a podcast, but you could also play devil's advocate, right? So you walk into the gym on a heavy day with a barbell, and you're perfectly content, if you do it right, to have like a 7x1 deadlift, take most of the hour with a warm-up, building up your warm-up sets, hit it, cool down, because you want to get stronger, quote unquote stronger, right? Well, there's a lot of people that need to get stronger on gymnastics or bodyweight movements. So for some people, I could almost view something like JT as, hey, you know what? This is just your quote unquote heavy day, your strength day for gymnastics. And you're going to do, just like you'd pull a deadlift, you'd wait 3 minutes. You'd pull a deadlift. You're going to do 2 handstand push-ups. You're going to stare at the wall for 1 minute. You're going to do 2 handstand push-ups, stare at the wall for 1 minute. And when you leave today, you will be stronger at those movements. Will your heart rate ever go above 41? No, probably not. But it's there's some interesting, there's probably 17 different ways to skin that cat, where you modified it and scaled it down to the pace kept really nice and your heart rate was going and everything was burning. And then some other ones where hey, you know what you need? You need to take the time that you need. And here we go,
That's one of those days where, all right, everybody, I'm going to start the clock, and it is what it is.
Yep. Walk over, get a drink of water if you need it. Enjoy yourself.
Do you miss having an affiliate?
Well,
it's always, I know there's one of two directions that always goes. Some people are like, absolutely not.
Well, so still I have an affiliate.
Well,
but
that's
it's just,
true. Yeah.
But it's just I don't actually hold classes that people show up to, and so. Yeah, I mean it's a double-edged sword, as you well know from the having an affiliate that is open. You've got classes come in and you're dealing with parking issues, and so clogged the toilet in the bathroom, and this guy dropped the empty barbell again. Like all that kind of stuff that drives you bonkers. But then all the stuff that makes you smile ear to ear of the camaraderie, the community, Mary's walked in for 7 weeks and she just got something that she never thought she'd be able to do. There's just two sides to that coin, right? But at where I was in my life, I had to make some sort of a decision. I couldn't continue doing what I was doing at CrossFit HQ at the pace that we were doing it and have your traditional, brick and mortar affiliate. But then again, I absolutely adore programming, like adore it, and was going to continue to do it anyway and help people out that way and help get people fitter and put workouts out, but I just couldn't do it in the traditional manner. So I was lucky enough to kind of find a way to, I guess, have the best of both worlds. So yes and no.
Yeah, I think, and that's actually a good segue, because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about programming, because I've always told people I was some of my path in CrossFit is 100% pure dumb luck. The fact that we happen to be living here in Virginia Beach, happened to walk in to your affiliate where it was not just you, but it was, Jomo's there, who's has largely been a mentor to me for years. That's just luck, but I've always kind of looked at your outlook on programming, for me personally, as kind of like what most of us should be striving for. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that with regard to linchpin, because to me, your philosophy is just keep it simple.
It is, and I wish that I could take credit for it, but much like yourself, a lot of the stuff on my end is just dumb luck as well, and timing, and fortunate enough to be around the right people at the right time. And, we just, came up in the, I hate to use that cliche phrase, old school, but that old school CrossFit world where you did one workout a day, you poured your heart into it. You didn't do 2 a day. You didn't lift heavy and then do something else. when there was a heavy day, that was your sole focus of the day. And you gave it the respect and time that it deserved. And it worked really, really profoundly well, like to the point where just never saw any need to do something different. Now, most of us, you get bored every now and then and you experiment, and all those other experimentations that I did with either more volume or doing something before or after it never yielded the same results as just the classic methodology. So I always just kept going back to that. And now it's been, I think 2005 is when I started. So it's been 15 years, so a decade and a half of progress, of injury-free, of not getting burned out, of still wanting to show up to the gym. And I think, progress is measured in several ways, right? Progress is not only your Fran time getting faster and your deadlift going up, but progress is also between the ears, and is whatever program that you're doing keep you happy, healthy, and motivated so that you still want to walk into the gym 5 years from now. And you're not like, fitness sucks. I'm burned out. I hate the world. This is dumb. My body aches, And so I think all of those things have to get wrapped up into what is the most effective program for any particular human walking the earth. And it's not just increasing your back squat. There's a whole lot of other factors.
And then is that so? And I imagine like you've been programming. When did you start Linchpin? Do you know what year?
I want to say it was 2014.
Okay, so you're at least 6 years into that and just doing online programming. And for anybody that hasn't checked it out, I think you should. Do you still do the Monster Mashes?
Yeah, every Monday. We post them for people who are, psychotic.
And that's one of the ways that I think is cool. And sometimes it can be tough to do in an affiliate because I think you probably have to modulate like how much you're going to smash people into the dirt. But
right.
I think that is one of the kind of clever / sneaky ways to get people off of the volume train, is that I just don't see people do that frequently enough. Is how often do you go into an affiliate where you walk in and up on the board it says 35-minute AMRAP?
Mm-hmm.
You immediately like throw up in your mouth a little bit, and it doesn't even matter what it is at that point. It's like 35 minutes. It could be air squats for 35 minutes, and I immediately don't want to participate anymore.
Right. Yep. And you got to go there every now and then, but yeah, that'll put a little frown on your face when you see it on the dry erase board.
It's funny because we'll do that. I think we did it about 2 weeks ago here at the box, and we did it on a Monday, and attendance for the rest of the week was down. Like people were just hammered. Oh, we did Chelsea.
Man.
Like sneaky, 30 minutes, EMOM. But man, it's just like people come to that realization at about minute 7 that they have 23 rounds left. And most of them have never done 23 rounds of Cindy in their life.
Mm-hmm. Chelsea's fantastic. There are some of those absolutely gorgeous, classic CrossFit named benchmark or girl workouts that, as somebody who adores programming, I mean, I have intense jealousy that I didn't create them. I mean, they're so beautiful.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and there are some of those ones, and you can almost know, I don't know if I want to use the term effective, but the ones that are blown off because they're going to sting and people would just rather, pull a deadlift and walk out of the gym, and you're like, let's do Chelsea. And someone's like, which one's Chelsea? And you're like, exactly.
Exactly.
That means it's the one you should probably do.
You should know that. Well, the funny part is that, like, I guess, I don't know what we would call newer CrossFitters, but let's just say anybody who started in the last 4 years. They don't know a lot of those. They don't know the Chelseas. They don't know the Nicoles. They don't know, what else do they probably not know? A lot of them probably don't even know some of the even better ones like the Elizabeths, which is, and depending on how bad you want to make that one, it's just like squat it. Don't power clean it.
Properly done with squat clean is my humble opinion.
Yeah. When I saw people power clean, I'm like, that's a thing? I'm like, oh, this would have been way easier.
I think one of the blessings of getting into CrossFit a while ago was, because what you're speaking about to some degree is is just a baseline of knowledge and some of the classic methodologies, the fundamentals, the concepts, the workouts, the whys, the hows. And, way back in the day, what was great was, the CrossFit Journal, which was just and still is a treasure trove of information. But I don't have any data to support this, but I don't think a lot of people are reading it these days. And I
would agree with you.
Back in the day, it wasn't even a fancy website kind of a deal. You would get an email sent to you once a month if you signed up for the journal, and we'd print it out and you'd staple it, and it would just stay on the kitchen table or the kitchen counter. And little by little over the course of the month, you would read through the journal, and you were just kind of finishing it. By the time the next one is, you'd print it out and staple it. And what you got was, what is fitness? What is CrossFit? What is now the technique lecture? Things about the zone diet, the whys, hows, all this exercise science. It was and still is phenomenal. And I think there's a lot of questions. At least I get asked a lot of questions these days that I know the answers to the questions that people are asking me are in those journal articles. And that's what leads me to believe that people aren't nerding out on it that I feel people used to nerd out on it to a larger degree back in the day. And that's not right or wrong. There's no judgment implied in that statement. I think a lot of people, life is busy. They go to their CrossFit gym, they work out, they go home, and they're not spending their free time reading through hundreds of pages and articles in the CrossFit Journal. That's fine. That's a coach's job, and it's our job to pass that information on. But there are some gems in the journal if any of your listeners haven't dove in there.
We recently did a podcast on just prepping for the level 3. And if I was to give somebody the synopsis of that, it was like, read the journal. So I'm on a mission to get people to start doing that. And sometimes I do ask myself, has the proliferation of CrossFit led to this scenario where a lot of people, I know people know it's there. I know people know CrossFit main site is there, but I don't think they realize what kind of resource they have access to. Like,
sure.
Like, when you start, because you started in 2004, when you start CrossFit?
5.
I started in 2008, roughly. And largely, like, that is where everybody went on a daily basis. And everybody had their own website for their affiliate, but that was the main resource that people went to. And to some degree, I feel like people who are starting later are missing out on that because there's more stuff out there. And it's just like, man, you should really just put CrossFit.com in your bookmark and just search the question that you have in there. And there's probably a dozen articles in there about that.
I think you're accurate on that, because I've definitely spoken to affiliate owners who have a thriving community at their affiliate, and they'll mention something because like back in the day, the photo of the day on CrossFit.com could be anything under the sun. Sometimes it would be an affiliate, sometimes it would be something from the game, sometimes it would be whatever. And it was a big deal if your affiliate photo became the photo of the day. And I remember one affiliate owner got up there and told his, like, the 5 p.m. class, that, like, I'm sure you guys saw it. Like, how cool is that? We're on CrossFit.com today. And these members were like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And they're like, well, the main website, CrossFit.com, we're the photo of the day. And everyone's like, we had no idea that there was a website, because all they were, they just lived in the local community and they heard good things about this CrossFit gym. And as far as they knew, that CrossFit gym was the entirety of the CrossFit world.
There was nothing else existed.
Some global, and then if the affiliate owner was like, you guys realize there's, like, thousands and thousands of gyms around the world, they're like, what? They had no idea, so I think, you've got the whole gamut of people, the whole gamut of exposure and all that stuff. It's just kind of fascinating.
I do remember I think it was definitely at Virginia Beach, but it was one of the coaches like, hey, do you follow main site? And I literally didn't know what that question meant.
Right.
What is this main site that you speak of? But
there's a world out there.
Yeah. So in your programming, because I love the programming lecture. Like I love everything about it, and it's changed a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, there's been some changes since you gave it, obviously, but the core of it is still there. But we do get questions about that a lot, either in our mentor group or people hit us up about programming. And a lot of like, it's also probably weird for you to know that there's like some statements that you've given that have just kind of become staples of the CrossFit community.
It's unusual.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know, I've known you long enough. I've known you long enough to know that like you didn't say that with the intention of this floating out into the CrossFit ecosystem and staying there forever,
Trademark pending.
And I'm sure you get questions about a lot. And I've kind of chimed in, or not chimed in, but kind of I'll hop in on your live feeds on Instagram for Linchpin pretty regularly. But if you're giving people just the basic guidelines for programming, like what are some of the core tenets of if you just kind of do this, it's really hard to get it wrong?
Oh man, fantastic question. Okay, here we go. There's a really nerdy exercise science way to do it, and then there's a simplified way to do it. And we're going to dive into the simplified way because how to say this without greatly offending people and causing a stir, like
it's okay.
The greatly nerdy exercise science part doesn't yield the benefit that I believe a lot of people feel that it does. There's something peculiar about human beings where they love complexity. They want it to be complicated with words that are like triple word scores and Scrabble and like Latin phrases and references to old books, and somebody hooked up to a machine measuring something. And you give them a simple statement as to what to do, and they're almost disappointed. And it's the same way with like eating. It's really easy to eat well without having you don't need a lecture on biochemistry, but people want to hear the biochemistry for some totally bizarre, nonsensical reason. And it's kind of like this with programming. And I can say this with a lot of confidence because back when I did those 200 seminars, you know the deal. When you're standing up there giving a lecture, you've got 50 people in a live audience. You have everyone in that audience, from your average Joe to a neurosurgeon to a professional athlete to everything in between. And you have everyone in the audience from people that are on board and will just wave the CrossFit flag the whole time to mysterious other people who are very intelligent, paid money to sit there, yet for some reason want to sharpshoot you and make you look stupid if you said anything bad and undermine you. So you had to be like really on your game, and you had to be well versed to handle those hard questions. And I dove into programming to handle those hard questions. And so I would read any of the classic books, so the seminars are Saturday and Sunday, but since working seminars was my full-time job, I'd go to Starbucks or something Monday through Friday for 3 to 4 hours every day and just treat it like a real full-time job and just read, take notes, highlight, underline, so that I could be not only prepared in what I was saying, but prepared to answer those tough questions, defend the methodology and all that stuff. And the interesting experience that I had, particularly reading just book after book after book on programming and exercise science and this methodology and that methodology, is I don't ever remember closing the book one day and saying, you know what? Wow, based upon what I just read, I'm going to go back to my garage gym and do business different today. I did not have a single experience like that. And that 1 hour programming lecture that you get at the level 1, which seems on the surface potentially too simple, I'm sorry, but it's not. And the truth is that a lot of the people out there pushing something or selling something, in my mind, it turns my stomach, are sometimes selling their way, and they are camouflaging it behind science and terms that they know, since people crave complexity. They'll go, ooh, this guy's doing the really fancy stuff. This must be the really good programming. And it's such smoke and mirrors and a crock of just feces that it should be considered fraudulent. But anyway, that was a long tangent. So the point being, what I'm going to say is, it is relatively simple. We could have a 7-hour discussion or a much smaller encapsulation. So here's my much smaller encapsulation is, I always say, first of all, classic stuff, 1 workout a day, embrace intensity over volume. I truly believe that. When you lift heavy, just lift heavy that day, go home, give it the respect that it deserves, and then you'll actually get the gains and improvements that that you want. But for programming, there are small things to worry about and larger things to worry about. And there are some big things such as movements, time domains, repetitions, loadings, things of that nature. And obviously we can vary the loadings from literally 0 or body weight to very heavy in your heavy days. Repetitions go from 1 to over 100. Time domains go from interval training of sub 15 seconds if you're doing 100-meter dashes or 1 rep clean or something, to you're doing Murph, you're there for almost an hour, so the time domains vary. All those things vary, et cetera, et cetera. But then there are, like I said, some large things to worry about and some small things to worry about. Let's say that you don't, Jeff Martone will probably send me a hateful text message after I send this, and you definitely don't want Jeff Martone on your bad side. It's like a walking ninja. But let's say that you don't swing a kettlebell for 3 weeks. I can make a very strong statement that your fitness has not deterred in any way, shape, or form. So that's a small thing to worry about. Did or did we not swing a kettlebell? Now, if I look at somebody's programming and we didn't go below parallel for 3 weeks, well, that's a large issue to worry about. So you've got smaller issues and you have larger issues. And your larger issues are what I think somebody that wants to get into programming, start with those and worry about those. And the little stuff you can fill in as you get a bit more comfortable with what you're doing. But it could be larger issues from going below parallel to pulling off the ground to going overhead to, are you pulling towards your body in like a pull-up, towards your body in like a ring row? The press could be overhead. The press could be in the direction of a push-up. The press could be in the direction of a ring dip. And then all of those larger building blocks that you need to hit from below parallel to pulling off the ground to going overhead, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then you need to take that framework and overlay in that framework the time domains, the repetitions, the loadings, et cetera, with the appropriate care to the variance that you hit everything that you need to hit, you don't leave anything behind, and nothing gets too much attention or too little attention, so that the athlete progresses nicely in all those aspects of building an engine, building body weight movements, and building barbell strength at things that take less than a minute and the things that take 30 minutes, while not giving the athletes so much that they're overtrained and broken.
Yeah.
But you have to give them enough of a dose that they adapt. So there's the fine line also, is too little of a stimulus, you don't get the adaptation. Too much, people are overtrained, broken, unhappy, and they're not walking into the gym. And then something like, the below parallel, which we mentioned. Okay, great. You got a below parallel on Tuesday is what you need to do. Let's just say, well, you have now countless opportunities to go below parallel. It could be an air squat, could be a pistol, could be a medicine ball clean, could be a wall ball shot, a thruster, an overhead squat, a cluster, a squat clean, a power clean plus a front squat, a walking lunge. It could be a box step up. It could, you name it. And then each one of those movements that I just said, well, is it going to be light, medium, or heavy? Mm-hmm. And then each one of those movements that I just said, is it going to be high volume or low volume? And none of those decisions live in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. Those decisions are based upon, good programming looks backwards just as much as it looks forward. So that decision that I make that day, after we know that Tuesday would be a great day to go below parallel based upon what we did the previous 1, 2, or 3 days, now that I know if we want to go below parallel there, and now I'm going to look backwards and see the last 2, 3, 4, 5 times that we went below parallel, how did we achieve that? What did we do? And it might be time to repeat one of those things, or it might be time that looking backwards might highlight that there's something we haven't done in a while, and therefore that's the decision that's made. And then after that decision is made, you have to play that same game with, okay, we're going below parallel. We've chosen our movement. Well, now is it going to be high volume or low volume? Again, we got to take a look backwards. The last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times we've gone below parallel. What's the trend in? What have we hit? What haven't we hit? That's where we need to go today. And that very tedious and monotonous and, laborious game is played with every day, and on every day, every movement, every loading, every rep range, and every time domain until they all fit, because no day stands alone. Whatever you do today affects tomorrow and the next day and vice versa. So they all have to have this beautiful synergy that allow you to accomplish what you want to accomplish that day without deterring from what you're going to do the next day. And it just takes a very long time, to do and to do right. And there's no way to learn how to do it, even if somebody laid out a perfect step, without making a tremendous amount of mistakes for a while, right? I mean, everybody just wants to be an expert 2 weeks in, and that's not the case. You're going to be bad at programming for a really long time before you're even a beginner, and then you're going to be a beginner for longer than you want to be. Then you're going to be intermediate, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, that's again, I just gave a lot of information, but I didn't give.
Somebody's
but
still
then again, there's not a step-by-step thing, But then again, while I gave a lot of information, I didn't say step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, because that's also the other part that people don't want to hear, because they want a step-by-step deal.
Yeah.
And while there are some things that are useful, I do also truly believe that Glassman's statement that beautiful programming is part science and part art.
Yes.
And so if it was only science, then you could read one of those big 3-pound textbooks that I read and walk out of that session an expert programmer. But that is just not the case.
Yeah.
There is that as a basis, and then playing with everything that I just said to develop your style and figure out what truly works. And that's when the art starts to happen. And some people despise it and some people enjoy it. I'm just lucky. I enjoy it, but some people it's like, it would be a living hell to have to do that on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's the art thing is always an interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the art portion of that people overlook. And I think that's an important concept to really try to wrap your brain around, because when I insert that this is an art to it, that by nature means that mastery is almost not a thing.
Oh, sure.
Like you're never going to get it locked down, because it is an art. Like it's constantly evolving, and then your knowledge of different aspects of programming starts to evolve over time. And that's what I think is the beauty and the fun part about it, is because it is art, like you're never going to master it, but it's also, because it's an art, getting it wrong now means that it's okay. Like that's part of the process when you do it. And I wanted to ask you a question with regard to there's a couple things, like big ticket items, that I think people get wrong when they start programming. So one of them is they'll build each day in a vacuum, meaning like I'm going to write this workout, and then with no forethought of what we did prior and then what we're going to do afterwards. And what I typically try to tell people is, like, I can have I could have 5 beautifully written workouts and put them together and make atrocious programming that is just abomination. And then the other one is how they build the workouts, right? So there's how I build a group of workouts, but then there's how I build a workout. So the first issue I see is people build it in a vacuum. And the second, and I'm curious on your thoughts on it, is people build the workouts from the bottom up. And I've always found it simpler and more effective to build it from the top down, meaning the big ticket items. Is it task priority? Is it time priority? But people immediately want to start getting into the specifics of, we're going to squat clean on this day. And I'm like, whoa, back up a little bit. Like, let's start like really big picture, and then we'll get there. But if you start from the bottom up, then it always just turns into a goat rope when you're finished with it. And it looks like that, I think Freddie Camacho coined this, the any asshole workout, which is like any asshole could write that on a piece of paper and now call it, good programming.
First of all, I want to applaud you for using the phrase goat rope. Fantastic. It needs to be used more frequently. Second of all, I can tell you when I started anyway. So I currently program for linchpin in 4-week blocks.
Okay.
And so what I have now is I've got a Google Doc, a big, second monitor that I kind of is huge in front of me. I'll open it up. I'll lay out, 4 empty blocks. And then the first thing I'll do is maybe I should say, with the top down, top bottom, that might be, you could be right or wrong on that. And it also could be just stylistic, right? I mean, so,
For sure.
if at the end of it, beautiful programming comes out, rock on,
Yeah,
if you've got something like, I'm going to say what I do. And if you're like, that doesn't work for you at all and something else does, embrace it. But I'll have 4 weeks open. And the first thing that I'll do is I'll kind of, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. You're just looking at 4 empty weeks and you're like, oh, to get some sort of framework in there and just start putting puzzle pieces in, I'll usually have out a blank sheet of paper on my desk, and then I will start to scroll back through the programming that has been posted. And the first thing I'll write down is what we've done for just heavy days, classic heavy days. I should say, well, we have 2 types of heavy days, classic heavy days, and then what I'll call like a heavy day at a high heart rate. Where there's definitely a heavy bias to the workout.
Mm-hmm.
And getting strong doesn't just look like 7x1 or 5x5. You can get strong on a heavy day with a high heart rate. So I'll lump those in too. So I'll start this list and I'll work backwards with, okay, what did we just do this week? What did we do the week before? And I'll write them all down. And then when I have them all down, now I'm not looking at those and the other workouts. I'm just looking at the heavy days, and just looking at the heavy days from most recent to least recent gives me an idea of where we've been. And after I do some scribbling and some connecting of lines and whatnot, it gives me an idea as to what should make an appearance again, because we haven't seen it in a little bit. And then also written down on that list will just not be the movement, but also the loading. So maybe it was a 7x1 overhead squat, and I can tell based upon when I write this list down, an overhead squat, maybe we did Nancy, but an overhead squat by itself as a standalone heavy day needs to make another appearance. And now I look down this list and say, okay, in the last 2 or 3 months, we've had 2 or 3 overhead squat heavy days, and we had a 7x1, we had a 5x5, we had a 6x3. You know what? It's time for doubles. Or you know what? It's time for 4 sets of 7. Like, it will become a little bit more apparent. Oh, my dog is looking at me through the window. Buddy, you made a decision. You're outside now. You can't come in the room. I'm sorry. Made your bed. You got to land it. That will kind of let me know that this is the next thing that needs to happen. So, and I'll play that game for all of the major lifts. Okay. And then I'll take those major lifts. I'll look at my empty spreadsheet and I'll look back, and if in the most recent week, one of those overhead squat days it doesn't make sense for me to put it the next week, something else needs to go there, I'll space them out appropriately, okay? And I'll play that game over the next 4 weeks. Now I'll just plug in those dedicated lift days with the repetition range that seems to make sense based upon where we've been previously. That's because that's guiding me as to where I need to go. So now those are somewhat set on various days.
Yep.
And that will give me at least a loose framework to then build around. Because let's say again, this is just fiction, right? But let's say on week 2, on Wednesday, well, that was a day we decided 4 sets of 7 overhead squat was needed. Well, I immediately know, since we're doing that on Wednesday, that the day before, Tuesday, Nancy's a poor choice. So there are some things without being, a genius expert level, just become very obvious, like that. And because based upon those lifts, it's going to dictate to a degree, this was a pull off the ground day, this was an overhead day, this was a below parallel day. So it starts to give a little bit of not structure, but a roadmap to follow. And then I will play that same kind of a game with all that other crazy stuff that we mentioned, from time domains to loadings to rep ranges to couplet to triplet to chipper to task priority to time priority. And I'll lay out 4 weeks, and it might take, depending upon how I'm feeling, it might take a few days just to get that 4 weeks laid in there. Okay. And then, so then every day for the next 4 weeks, something is in there, and it's something is in there based upon all that analysis and legwork, like I just mentioned, for all the different things you have to think about when programming. I'll then walk away from it for like a day or so and just let it sit and marinate, because, if you stare at it too long, you go crazy.
Yeah.
I'll then come back to it, look at it, and I'll hate everything that I did. I think it's the stupidest, worst, most idiotic things I've ever seen in my life, and I'm just hateful about myself. And I'll be like, because there is that art and science, right? So I roughly plugged it in just to get ideas on paper. Because once I have ideas on paper, then I can take it all in. I can move this around. I can look at this and be like, okay, well, this now doesn't make sense that I see that this happened. And little by little, over the course of another, I don't know, let's just say week, every day is just a polishing, so every day you go back to it for an hour or two with fresh eyes, and you say, okay, I sat on this for a while. I like how this played out, but I don't like how it interferes with this. This is going to go in here. This shouldn't be 5 rounds. This should be 3. What was I thinking with making that, this way? It needs to be this. And little by little, polish. And then eventually, it may only need 2 days of polishing if I got it kind of nice right out of the gates, or it might need 7 days of polishing. It just depends. But when it's finally done, I just know when it's done. You know what I mean? Like, you finally, I look it over and I'm like, this is something I'm really proud of, really like how it shook out. It's not only effective at developing GPP, but then, like we said, the art part, I'm like, I like how it looks. It's beautiful. Like, I like it. The numbers make sense. The rounds make sense, and it just takes a while to get to that point for me personally anyway. But that is, again, there's maybe some steps that I left out in there, but that's a general process as well.
Well, that's an interesting piece of it, which kind of shouldn't be the case, but typically effective workouts are effective, but then when you look at them, they're kind of like, on paper, they're kind of aesthetically pleasing. Like, it's easy to read and see what it is that's happening there. Like, and that's generally, I mean, this isn't the case all the time, so there's definitely not an absolute statement, but typically if I'm struggling to understand what the hell should be happening in the workout, I've kind of like dismissed the workout as being effective. Like, if it takes you 7 minutes to explain to me what we're about to do for the next 12 minutes, then I'm like, I'm not really interested anymore. Like,
you've lost me.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do this. And that's where I think the simplicity comes in, is like, should really, like, the numbers should flow nicely. Like, it's not an intelligence test. We're gonna work out,
And like so many other things in the world, again, human beings are interesting. They crave complexity for absolutely no reason. They're fascinating creatures to me, whether it's in working out or how you should eat or investing money or whatever it is. Like, they just want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And it's never the complicated stuff that has the big payoff. Even, let me go talk to Mike Bergner, right? How many athletes has he coached through the most technical thing that you can do with a barbell, the Olympic snatch? There's nothing more complicated that you can do. And if you ask him, when he sees a lift not go well, you're like, Mike, did that athlete do some strange ninja level nuance thing wrong? Or did they do one of the fundamental, you didn't open your hips all the way? Like, it's one of the basic foundational building blocks that people need to get good at. And none of us are good enough at them, that you could spend the rest of your life not worrying about the complicated stuff and trying to get really good at the foundation of the skyscraper. But everybody wants to work on the 100th floor when they haven't built the foundation, and then they wonder why the skyscraper crumbles.
Well, that's, I mean, that's one of his iconic statements is, 90% of missed lifts can be attributed to a foot fault, meaning like, I just did not move my feet 3 inches to the appropriate receiving position.
It wasn't because you didn't have on your $400 knee sleeves with your fancy whatever. Like, that wasn't why you missed the lift. Okay, it was. It wasn't it. It was.
You missed it because that's not your squat stance.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And the same can be done with programming. Is there's this I don't know, it's not a need, a potential desire to want to make something more complicated than it has to be. And I've said before, you take a workout like Helen, which is not complicated. If anyone's unfamiliar with it, 3 rounds of time, 400-meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, and 12 pull-ups. And I'm so glad that Helen was created years and years and years ago when it was created, because it was created back then with a 53-pound bell for the men, and it's chin over bar pull-ups. And if in 2020 somebody had to create Helen, they would make it 5 rounds. They would, of course, say you have to swing the 70-pound bell. I mean, come on. Why? I don't even know why we have a 53. And chin over bar pull-ups? I'm an athlete. Give me chest to bar pull-ups. Don't you know how fit I am? And it's 5 rounds long, and all they did was they created this workout, which, don't get me wrong, you're not sitting on the couch. You're doing functional movements.
Correct.
At a high heart rate. You're getting fit. But what people think is you must be getting fitter than had you done the other one. And the answer is not that simplistic. Yeah. And what you did is you just gave yourself, in that 5-round heavy kettlebell chest to bar workout, wonderful excuses to slow down, wonderful excuses to rest, wonderful excuses to lower your intensity and hide behind more rounds, more weight, and a chest to bar pull-up, instead of setting your hindquarters on fire in regular Helen. And the other thing is programming in general. Those 2 workouts that we just mentioned, the regular Helen at 3 rounds and the heavy long Helen at 5 rounds, neither one is right and neither one is wrong. I might program that 5-rounder one day instead of regular Helen, but it would be programmed as an intentional choice based upon what we've done in the week before. And hey, you know what we need today? We need a long, miserable grinder that is going to be at a bit lower intensity, and there's more volume, and you're going to have to stop every now and then. But for the sake of intelligently programmed variance, it's what we need today. It's not what we need every day. It's what we need today. And I think that's a big difference too.
I think I'm pretty sure I stole this from you too, which is and I've always remembered this when I think about loading a barbell, and like truly what a Metcon should look like, in my opinion, is there's a distinct difference between somebody who puts a barbell down because they have to and somebody who puts a barbell down because they just really want to, because of the pain that they're going through at that point. And that's where I think people really ignore something like a 75-pound barbell, which
boy. Go do Jackie.
Oh God, that's just
you know what I think, again, human beings are fascinating creatures. And this all needs to be said of the caveat of, if you're doing any of the stuff that I said, maybe you are doing a strength bias program. Here's an important thing to say. I don't care.
That's where I was eventually going to go with, as much as you're a nerd, like I also know that you simultaneously like don't care and know that it's really not that important.
I don't care. Right. We're just working out. And whether you're doing the strength bias programming or whatever it is, you're not sitting on the couch and you're doing good functional movements. I don't think you're potentially doing what you could be doing to maximize your GPP and have wonderful knees, backs, and shoulders when you're 62, and I'm vocal about that. But we also live in a wonderful world where you can do whatever you want. Yeah. You don't have to do what you should do. You can do whatever you want to do. And that's your call, and I don't hate on anybody for it. You're good to go, but I would feel remiss and bad if I've been lucky and blessed to do, what we've been lucky enough to do in CrossFit for so long, and share all the knowledge and go to all the seminars and interact with all these people and all these coaches, that you form opinions as to what works and what doesn't work. And I would be remiss if I felt like I had information to help people and just was like, you know what, I'm not gonna tell anyone. I'll tell everybody in a kind and respectful manner, but you can still choose to do something else. And there's no ill will, on my end. So just, hey, rock on, do what you want to do. We're all working out.
Yeah. And so I think that overall conversation is like, are you looking for optimal, or you just want to do that because you want to do that? And that's the beauty, is you can experiment and you'll probably learn something in the process, right? And typically every time I've strayed away from simplicity, I've always come back to it with regard to programming. But that kind of leads me to a different question, which is obviously based on the, the current crisis that the world is dealing with, which is coronavirus. Obviously, if you're doing any of these things, like, you're probably in a better position than if you weren't, right?
Amen to that. Yeah.
And I'm curious, because so for those of people that don't know, obviously you worked on seminar staff, you spent a good chunk of time on the media side of the house, but now you're currently on the CrossFit Health side. What do you guys have going on with CrossFit Health at this point? Like, I know you guys just canceled your April.
Right. Conference. Yep. So, I mean, the largest thing, again, unfortunately, that was canceled, and I don't know when the next DDC will happen, hopefully soon, because they're an awesome and incredible exchange of information, where when I'm in those rooms, I am by far the least intelligent human being in the room, which is awesome, because it's just a huge opportunity to learn, because there's just so many brainiacs around. But the largest thing that we have that we just kicked off is we just launched our CrossFit Physicians Network, which is basically any doc who has gone through the level 1 seminars, CrossFit doc credentialed. We are reaching out to all of them and getting their information and locations put on one map for kind of 2 purposes. They can interact and network with each other, because a lot of times those CrossFit docs, if you're the lone CrossFit doc at your hospital, your peers might think you're the crazy one because you don't think squatting is bad for your knees. You're not going to tell your patients not to squat. You actually know that the squat is rehabilitative, and so is the deadlift. How crazy is that? A doctor that might tell you to deadlift, and a doctor that has a great sense of what a healthy diet full of non-processed food is. And so these CrossFit docs can support each other in their various hospitals and administrations, and share best practices for trying to crack the code of old ways of doing business in some places. And then there's an ever-growing body of just regular folks, CrossFitters, if you will, who would prefer to be seen by a CrossFitting doctor who knows that it's okay to squat than one that doesn't. And so this gives people an opportunity to find, is there one near me that I can potentially make my primary care physician? So that's been kind of an exciting project.
Yeah, I remember getting that email about a month ago. Is that accurate? Something?
Probably, yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. Are you a physician?
Not of medicine, no.
Nephrologist, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, but I do have a lot of doctors here, and
very cool.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I've been having a lot of conversations with them in the past couple of weeks about all this stuff. So
I can imagine, yeah.
But I tell you what, on that note, and we talked a little bit yesterday on the podcast we recorded yesterday with Jay and I, that people are freaking out, and I'm like, listen, the best thing that you could do, we can't change how old you are, like you're just that old, but you could be as healthy as fucking possible, because we did one on the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, and I'm like, listen, I would be willing to bet large sums of money that, a 70-year-old who's doing a lot of CrossFit has a better opportunity of surviving coronavirus than somebody who wasn't,
Right. I mean, no way to know for sure, but the overwhelming majority of the time, if your choice was being fit or not being fit, I think, the choice is, I don't know if this is going to help, but I'd prefer to be fit, please.
Yeah. And they were, the doctor, she's the like president of the practice of all the ER doctors in the area. And she was kind of explaining to me like coronavirus and what happens there. It's basically rapid onset pneumonia for the elderly. And they're like, I think it's ARDS, which sets in, which is basically like, she's like 90% mortality rate. Like they just can't do anything. They just can't do anything about it at that point. She said, yeah, it's definitely serious. And she said, the people that are susceptible, she's like, they're very susceptible, but, what else? So what else do you guys have going on? Like, so that's canceled. Like, is there anything else that people, because I'm trying to get people to start kind of paying attention to CrossFit Health and the journal. But I'm not super looped in there. So, I teach.
So that's a big thing that we do. Liaisoning and networking with physicians is a large part of my role with CrossFit Health, on top of the DDCs. And then the other thing, which occupies a bunch of my time as well, is, if you go to CrossFit.com, once every 4 days, there's a CrossFit home video where you will see an elderly individual, working out in what looks like an older living room set, and they're either using no equipment, or they're doing push-ups off their couch, or, lifting jugs of water and things like that. Basically, all that content it's my job I go down there, set it up, direct it, film it, and with Jay Vera, he films it, edits it, produces it, and we screen it, and get the proper ones up there on the website every 4 days. And the goal with those, and of course, since that's every 4 days for perpetuity, you always have to feed that beast. So I'm usually every couple of weeks on a plane down to HQ, setting up those filming shoots, getting it edited, because there's always a need, need another video, need another video, need another video. And those are largely done, just classic excuses of maybe why people won't work out. I don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I don't want to buy any gear. I don't want to leave my house, et cetera, et cetera.
Which, oddly enough, they might be more relevant today than ever.
Right.
Everybody's locked in their homes.
And so these workouts were, they're gold. They're hopefully targeted right at that audience that is largely sedentary, older, et cetera, maybe a bit scared to walk into a gym because I think they're going to be just full of these ferocious fire-breathing animals, and they're not going to fit in, and there's a level of intimidation. And so the goal is either, hey, here are just some ideas. Mm-hmm. You can use these ideas, and if you just did this for a year instead of just sitting on the couch, and you reduce the amount of processed food that you ate, you'd be a different human being in 1 year with no gear whatsoever. And then another thing, which could be potentially a second step to that, which would be great, is maybe some of these people do that for a while. They realize it's not as intimidating as they thought. They start to feel the benefits of it. And then maybe walking into that CrossFit affiliate isn't as intimidating as it used to be. And they get off the couch, out of their living room, and down to their local gym. And so there could be this really nice synergy in our ecosystem. Anyway, I hope that's what's happening.
Is on that note, I know Michelle's kind of the head honcho there.
Oh, she's a beast.
Do you have anything to do with that at all?
So she runs the classes that we have every day there at HQ, and she's grown that thing from like the initial class that had maybe 10 people in it to now I think it's over 250 members and participants, and gone from one class every other day to classes 5 days a week, I think 3 to 4 times a day. And that's all.
I think it's 4 because I was supposed to be there this week, but we had to cancel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's been phenomenal, and that's all her. And any content that we do film in the living room set, that's me, and I'll use her athletes and her older athletes. And so I'll set it up with her, and she'll help fill the time slots that we need with people that she has had in her class.
Yeah.
And then every now and then we'll also do some filming in the gym where she works out, and because they got home stuff, you'll get things with 0 gear in a home set. But we're also starting to put out some great content of the scales and modifications that she truly uses in the real world to train that segment of society, which is phenomenal.
And where is all that stuff? Because what I'm asking is, like, for people that want and should steal that content, where would they find it?
It's going to be on CrossFit.com.
Okay.
Yep. Right. So that's going to be the place to go, and it'll just live there forever, which would be great.
So is that none of that is up yet? I mean, I know there's a bunch of
home stuff. The once every 4 days home stuff is up and has been up for quite some time. The other stuff that took place in the gym, we just recently started filming that.
Okay.
And it either has been posted or is in the pipeline.
Got it. I haven't seen it, but I've been skipping a lot of days. I've been underwater with obviously a bunch of affiliates, but I'm definitely planning on stealing it. And that was a lot about what I talked to Tyson about, is just like using that content that's, very well produced and looks really nice, and just putting it out on our social media handles just to kind of try to scoop up some of that population, because they're the ones that need it the most. So,
right. Just help spread the word.
Yeah. Anything else, man? Like, I know the CrossFit Health stuff is like a big kind of, doesn't necessarily.
I mean, not necessarily related to CrossFit Health or anyone, but I mean, have you told everyone the story how you should have gone to the games in '09 instead of me?
We should talk about that.
I say that to this day. That was your spot that I somehow took, but that was your spot.
Well, it was my spot until the final workout started, and then it was quickly not my spot. I think this story is hilarious because what was the workout? It was snatch and chest to bar pull-ups. Was it 21:15.9?
Probably, because Jeff Tincture made it, so it was probably 21:59. It was a 95-pound barbell.
95-pound barbell. And that workout, this is 2009?
Yeah,
2009. And it was
Mid-Atlantic
qualifier, and they were taking the top 6 spots. And it was every second count. So there was that waterfall start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Blair Morrison was first going in.
Mm-hmm.
I was second, and then where did you start that? Were you? It was top 10 because it was the final 10 people.
Yeah, top 10, but near the end. I was not in the better half. I was in the worst half of the top 10. That's for sure.
Well, in your defense, Ben Smith was somewhere around you as well.
And that screwed me over.
that was his coming out party because he won. Nobody knew who he was, and he was done minutes before everybody else.
Well, that's, I'll let you get back to the story briefly, but that's what screwed me over is, yes, nobody knew who Ben Smith was. And like you said, it was that waterfall start. And so maybe I started in like 7th or something because I had something in my head where I looked at the guy who was one guy in front of me. It was Ben Smith. And I didn't know who this kid was. And I was like, okay, they're taking the top 6. I'm number 7. So all I need to do is beat this guy in front of me and I'll be good. And then I became immediately so saddened by his pace that I think it was impossible to keep up, and I felt like just suicidal, and he just destroyed me.
I think he did that workout in like 5. So everybody go try this workout. It's 21:59, 95 pounds squat snatch and chest to bar pull-ups. And I think this is 10 years ago. And I'm pretty sure he did that workout in right around 5 minutes, if not faster.
Probably.
And, so anyway, I remember looking over. I had a complete full-on meltdown in the middle of the workout. Like just my life just imploded. And I remember looking over at you, and you were done, and you had what essentially amounted to no skin on your hands whatsoever anymore.
I remember that, yeah.
And I immediately I went from being disappointed to I was like, I did not deserve to go. Like I was not willing to do that. So I did not deserve that spot.
And there was a hidden person who assisted me in that effort in the crowd, and that was Maggie Dabe.
Oh, now Maggie Tincture. Yeah.
On the level 1 staff, Maggie Tincture, if you will. And there was like caution tape to keep the crowds back, but they were still within arm's distance. I mean, they were not 50 feet back. I mean, they were right. The bar, they could have been hit by a falling barbell. And any single time that either the barbell was not in my hands or the pull-up bar was not in my hands, any moment that I was not doing work for a half second, Maggie would scream at the top of her lungs, not even in a supportful way, just a hateful, mean, screaming way. Get on the bar! Get on the bar! I think I got back in the bar just so she'd be quiet. I mean, it was just... And so I think she basically attempted to give me rhabdo, but in her efforts, made me go a whole heck of a lot faster than I wouldn't if she was not yelling at me.
Yeah, it's funny because I've always described her as one of the more verbally abusive people I've ever met in my life.
And at the same time, a total sweetheart. Like how she walks that line.
Yeah, I'm never offended by it, but I'm like, man, if anybody else said that to me, I would have lost my shit.
Yep, no, she gives you both barrels. And she put me in the hurt locker just through verbal motivation.
Oh man. That would have been nice, but at no point was I disappointed after that. Like I was like, man, I did not deserve that because I wasn't willing to go into the pain cave. But it would have been cool to go there. Well, but I mean, I got to go back later as a judge, to to the ranch.
Oh, so crazy. Times days gone by, man. It's shocking how time flies, and that was 11 years ago.
I know, it's crazy. It's always funny that, like, going back in time and thinking about that, what I thought going hard was, and then I
Mm-hmm.
walked into I mean, and we trained hard, like, when I played sports, but it was nothing to that extent. It wasn't like bury yourself until there's nothing left.
You know what's interesting, and like I said, we have to be careful. This will be a 4-hour podcast. Is that's another, in my humble opinion, another topic that I think people get confused sometimes, and that's why they add more volume or extra workouts. So I think in the more is better mindset, they'll think that doing more workouts will make me a better athlete and make me win more workouts, which maybe, but there's a big asterisk next to that, maybe, because a lot of doing a second workout might do something for your muscle tissue or cardiorespiratory endurance or whatnot, but it doesn't necessarily get you there between the years with mental toughness, ability to suffer, and just when every cell and fiber of your body says stop, you're one of those special people that don't. You know, a second workout of the day does not produce that. And I think there can be a pitfall that some athletes think that they do. And, you know, and you could see it all the time with various people working out, training. I mean, there might be some people that train a whole lot more than Becca Voigt over the course of her 10-year career or whatnot. Or if you just looked at Becca Voigt's numbers, like, all right, Becca, I want you to give me your 5K time, your deadlift time, your whatever time, and then I'm going to lay that out against the field, and I'll tell you where you're going to shake out. Okay, you're not going to do well because most people have a bigger, stronger, faster than this, you know, like, but then you show up on competition day and between the ears, she outperforms her numbers because she's such a mentally strong athlete and such a ferocious competitor that those 2 or 3 extra sessions that you did don't mean jack.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't yield what you thought it was going to yield. So I also think a lot of people, instead of doing a second or third workout a day, would probably be better served by working on themselves between the years, learning about themselves, and developing a bit more discipline and mental toughness through self-reflection, introspection, whatever it happens to be. And then you'll be able to have those current physical gifts that you already possess and use them even better. And that's a powerful little tool that not everybody has.
Well, I think that's because that requires intention with regard to either whether you're training by yourself, but probably a little bit more challenging in the affiliate level, because you have to specifically dial that up and you have to clearly communicate people to people. We're going to light ourselves on fire. Like, you know, and from a programming standpoint, like because I was thinking about this as you're saying, there's probably a lot of people that have experienced intensity, but not necessarily like the extent that they could actually produce. Like they could really, really get after it, but they don't dial it up that way. So you could do that. You know, you have to make some intelligent decisions about loading and movement and all that stuff in your affiliate. But I think that's perfectly acceptable and probably massively beneficial to dial something up like that. And the whole purpose of that day is to just take the regulator off and blow it up.
Yep, the old threshold training deal, you know, and again, you know, rabbit hole number 28, which I think is potentially hurtful to say in 2020, you know, where everybody wants to be a wonderful creature that is, you know, made in beautiful perfection and whatnot, but some people are just better than other people at certain things. You know, why is it that if you get a group of 50 students together, none of which have had, let's just say, language training, and they all get the exact same 1 hour of French a day, exactly the same, why after 1 year of training aren't they all the same level speaker? Because some people are just more acclimated to, like, that's the same way with working out. Like some people who don't work out anywhere near maybe as hard as you do are better than you. And that's not fair. And that's hurtful to hear.
But
those
genetics
are
is
also
a thing.
right. And those are also the people that we watch on TV,
Yeah.
and
I
that's
learned that lesson real early in basketball. I was like, listen, I can do all the drills I want, but I'm never beating that. Like,
right. It's Samantha Briggs.
Just a freak.
She's a special human being. She on a regular basis experiences a level of physical discomfort that most people would just tap out so fast, and she does it day after day. And I don't know if she's wired differently. I don't know if she's just tougher. I don't know if she has all of her nerve endings are dead in her body and she doesn't feel pain. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter what I do. If I had a team of 50 coaches working around the clock and I dedicated my entire life to being an athlete, I would never catch her, just because life ain't fair.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. And that's and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I could not agree with you more. And I do see people kind of have that realization at some point. But anybody who grew up playing sports, like, you learn that on day one. You're like, Billy's just better than I am. Like, at some point, I'm not going to be 6'4". So
I've got a funny Sam Briggs story. What is it? Why am I blanking right now? I think the workout's Kelly. Okay. 5 rounds of time, 400 run, 30 box jumps, 30 wall balls. Disgusting. And actually my nightmare workout. Sam Briggs was in town from the UK visiting CrossFit HQ. And, she's trained 28 times a day and whatnot. And so for one of those times, she's like, I'm going to do Kelly. I want to hop in with me? Of course I don't. But, it's a chance to work out with Sam Briggs, who, by the way, is not only an awesome athlete, but one of my favorite people. She's just cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah. And I'm not great at box jumps. As you may have known, I was born without calves. And I'm not good at wall balls. I despise those two movements. However, I'm not a bad runner, and I'm actually one of those weird CrossFitters that I don't mind running.
Yeah.
And Briggs likes running too. And Sam's like, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll do Kelly, but we're going to do it a little bit different. Instead of 5 rounds of all the same numbers.
I'm already worried, by the way.
We'll do like 1,000-meter run, and then 50-50, 800-meter run, 40-40, 600-meter run, 30-30, down to a 200-meter run, 20-20, or whatever, 10, whatever it was. And so I'm like, okay, I had no delusions of grandeur. I'm like, Sam is going to, and of course she was using the same box height as me, and she chose to use the 20-pound wall and throw it to a 10-pound target. So we were literally doing the same workout. And I had no illusions. I knew she was going to eradicate me. I said, but here's what I'm going to do. To establish dominance in my home country of the United States of America, I am going to at least beat her on the 1,000-meter run, even if it costs me whatever. And so we take off on the run, and it's our home course around HQ, which she doesn't know. I know it. She doesn't. We told her what it was, but she still had never run it before. So we're going, and I'm going at an unreasonable pace. I mean, there's no reason I should be running the pace that I'm running. I'm like panic breathing in my head. And it gets to this one point where we had to make a turn. We'd done like 800 meters. We had the final 200, and we couldn't go left or right. And I'm like, just, she's right next to me. And here's when I knew that I was so screwed. And she's just so much better than me, even on my best day, on her worst day. In a voice like we're having right now during this podcast, at that point, the 800-meter run, she goes, so are we taking a left or taking a right up here for this run, Pat? She was utterly relaxed, wasn't pressing her pace at all. And I was like, we're gonna go, take a left. And I was so mentally broken that my pace immediately slowed down, and she just took off. I never saw her again. And then the workout ends. I finish calendar days after her. And I'm finally recovered. She's been recovered forever. She's already done like 30 minutes of mobility. And out of curiosity, because, we did that pace of a run right into 50 box jumps, right into 50 wall balls, right? And I was so trashed that when I ran in, I just looked at the box for like 90 seconds before I did my first jump. So I was like, geez, Sam, since we didn't do the classic, Kelly, since we started off with the big sets, how did you break it up? And with no ego, this was not an egotistical statement from her, since I'm just so much less of an athlete than she was just confused by the question. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, the sets of 50, how did you break up the sets of 50? And she's like, oh, no, I didn't break anything up. And I was like, all right, forget it. See you later. This sucks. Working out sucks. It's just, hey, those are the people we watch on TV, though. It's all good.
CrossFit, constantly humbling.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want to end here. So you've always been, at least in my world, known for like these little treats from a training standpoint that are not necessarily workouts, right? But just like some little task that somebody could sprinkle in after a training session that would be fun.
Oh, you want just kind of a little something special, huh?
A little cookie.
I hate to say that this is a cookie. It's not. It's a workout in and of itself, but we're just going to say it's a cookie.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, because I think it's a beautiful trap.
It's my podcast. We can call it whatever we want.
Yeah, that people will think it's a cookie, even though it's not, because I did it as a full-blown workout, and it changed the course of my day. But just 21-15-9.
Okay.
Of a burpee, just old school regular burpee, not over anything. Just, hey, hold yourself to a standard. Open your hips, for Pete's sake. Jump off the ground a couple inches. So 21-15-9 of burpees and knees to elbows.
Ooh.
That's it.
Okay.
It's laughable, Jason. It's laughable. You won't even know you did it. It's simple, so easy. It'll all be unbroken. It'll all be fast, and you'll just be standing around saying, that was nothing.
I've been doing this long enough to immediately know to be afraid of that workout.
And knees to elbows, just in case anyone's curious, properly named because your knee should touch your elbow, not your tricep, not your armpit.
Your elbow.
Knees to elbows.
That's like when somebody asks the question for chest to bar pull up. So does my chest have to touch the bar?
Nah, do whatever you want.
Yeah, make up your own standard. Awesome, dude. Well, I know you're a busy man. I'm going to try to get some fitness in here in a minute. But, dude, this was great, dude. I appreciate your time. Where can they find out? Yeah, where can people find you and Lynchpin stuff?
Just go to CrossFitLynchpin.com is the website. You can click on the private track, check that out, or on Instagram. We're just CrossFit Lynchpin on Instagram, and that's it. Enjoy it.
Do you still do affiliate programming, or is it just an individual track?
Yeah, we've got an individual subscription and an affiliate subscription. So kind of whatever you want, got you covered, and enjoy, and hopefully everybody stays healthy and stays safe, and we'll all come out on the other side.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now. best hour of their day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day, and thanks again to our special guest. We appreciate all you guys do for us with Best Hour of Their Day when it comes to sharing our posts on Instagram, when it comes to subscribing to us on YouTube, when it comes to the constant feedback. We are grateful and we appreciate it. We are trying to build a community based on coaching development and becoming the best version of yourself. And it goes without saying that we couldn't do without all of you. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Season 1 of Dropping In is out. We are getting tremendous feedback and we'd love for you to check it out. Leave us a comment on there. Head over to our Instagram. Give us a follow. Like our pictures. Feel free to share anything that resonates with you. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback for us, please don't hesitate. Email us, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com. Thanks again. Until the next episode, we hope you've had the best hour of your day.